Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be drawing in my sketchbook. As you all saw in a previous video, I customized the cover, and today we're actually doing one of the first drawings in it. This is the second page of my new sketchbook, and I just wanted to do some colored pencil doodles. Here you are seeing me do the sketch. I started it without you guys, unfortunately, but then I realized I wanted to record it, so here it is. You guys don't really miss much. I just kind of wanted to draw something fun and happy, almost summery, which is kind of funny because at the time of recording this, we're like nowhere near summer. I just wanted to do something fun and happy and draw with you guys. And I really wanted to use colored pencils. I've been using markers of recently and I kind of wanted a break, so I thought it would be fun to use an art supply I don't use very often. But I really enjoy colored pencils. Here I am lightening my sketch to prep for it. Now, the funny thing about this drawing is that I didn't use line art. Normally, I do line art in a black pen. Recently, it's been a Micron. Before I do coloring for colored pencils, I usually do line art for all of my traditional art. It's actually very rare that I don't do line art. But today, I didn't feel like doing line art because I just didn't feel like having, that much control, doing all the itty-bitty details. So I decided that I wanted to just color this sketch, go from mechanical pencil straight to color. And it actually turned out really well, and I'm quite proud of it. In fact, line art is one of the last things I do, and I still do it in colored pencil for the most part. And my colored pencil process is kind of, I would say, like watching other YouTubers use colored pencils, I feel like my process is sort of different. I like to build up color really, really slowly when I do colored pencils. So I'll start with a super light base layer of, for example, I'm coloring the skin tone here, and then I will go in with various colors and just build very slowly, kind of like in digital art when you use different layers. So I layer the pencils, and I like to keep a lot of the texture of colored pencils whenever I draw. So you won't really see me blend things a ton and make it super smooth. I do like the sort of rough and grainy texture, I guess you could say, of colored pencils. So that's why I also layer super slowly so I can keep that texture. But the colors I used for this were brown, tan sort of skin tone. Then I have red, orange, and yellow for blush. And then I add a little bit of pink, as you'll see as the drawing continues on. And I really liked how this drawing turned out, mostly because, one, I think the color scheme looks nice. It's a very simple color scheme. The only things that I really colored are her face, her hands, so her skin basically, and then her hair. And then the shirt that I color later is white, and then I just shade it as you normally would with clothing. And I don't know if it's because the color scheme is super simple or it's just the way I colored it makes me like the colors so much. I just think it looks very fun and vibrant. My camera doesn't really do it like perfect justice. It is a lot brighter in real life. So think of this drawing, but just like up the saturation a little bit. But I am really happy with how this turned out. I think all the colors blend nicely. I think how I went about going the piece was nice. Doing line art on this was actually kind of complicated because my pencils kept breaking, and that was kind of frustrating. But I mean, it's okay, we got through it. I do end up using these water-based markers that I just have on my desk. They're like fine liners. It's like a 60 pack of them, and I do line art very minimally with these, just for the small sticker details on her face. I really like how the face turned out in particular. I like how I shaded the planes of the face. Now, my style is very cartoony, and I like to think it's more anime-esque, so a lot of the time, I don't really shade the planes of the face and make everything look super detailed. But for this piece, I really delved deep into making the cheeks look flushed and the nose. When I started sketching this, I wanted to break out of same face syndrome, which is something that a lot of artists do. If you're in the art community, it's talked about a lot on YouTube, how sometimes artists will get, sort of in the pattern of drawing the same face over and over and over again. And what I wanted for this piece was to give her a very like interesting facial structure and then a small nose. And I definitely think it looks different than my stereotypical like big anime eyes, small nose sort of drawings that I normally do. In fact, in my opinion, this kind of looks like I had a reference, which surprisingly I didn't. I think that's why I like it so much, because it looks like I took my time and I used a reference and I, had a color scheme in mind. And as I was recording this, I was kind of just going along with the flow. I didn't really have a plan or anything. I just knew that I wanted to do a sketch and I wanted to use colored pencils. Those were the only two goals that I had set out for this drawing session, and I successfully accomplished them. It was so much fun doing this. If you are, into colored pencils or you want to get into colored pencils, definitely just try to use them. You don't have to do anything super crazy. Just have fun. This was just a one-off sketch in my sketchbook. It's the fifth sketch I've done in this new sketchbook, and I'm really happy with it. I'm happy with how it turned out, and it was just sort of a random spur of the moment thing that I wanted to do. Tips for colored pencils. Disclaimer, colored pencils are not my main traditional art supply. My main traditional art supply is alcohol markers. But I do like to dabble in, other art supplies as well. So tips for colored pencils, it really depends on what sort of look you want. If you want a more, maybe more realistic or smooth, sort of cartoony look, then use a lot of bold colors and make sure that your colors are flat when you lay them down on whatever paper you're using. If you want a more sort of free-flowing, sort of fun and interesting to look at, I suggest you leave in a lot of texture with colored pencils. Because colored pencils, the thing about them is that they're very versatile. If you have the right colored pencils, you can get super smooth, flat colors. Or if you want, you can do super textured and have a lot of variation. And I think that's why I enjoy colored pencils so much, is because they do have that variation. They always look different depending on how you want it. And I have kind of done smoother colored pencils drawings before, but it's just number one, I think pushing that hard to get such a flat, nice, even color can kind of hurt your wrist after a while. So that's why I switched to doing more textured colored pencil art, just because number one, it's easier on my wrist, and number two, I found that I like the look of it more. It just looks so free and it's a little colored pencil sketch. So yes, I'm glad I experimented with this and not doing line art beforehand. As of recording this video, I have done another colored pencil piece, a little higher on the page from the one you're seeing on screen now, doing the same sort of sketch and then just jumping straight into colored pencils. And I liked how that one turned out. I think it was fun, the sort of lineless kind of going about the colored pencils just in a way wherever I feel like putting the colors. I think it worked out. I definitely think it worked out. And yeah, when I do colored pencils, I just love to have a lot of fun, add a lot of color, and I definitely think I accomplished it with this drawing. I think I'm actually going to do more colored pencils in this sketchbook, just because specifically I find this paper is a little rougher compared to some of the other sketchbooks that I've had. Normally in my sketchbook paper, I do prefer it smooth, just because I use a lot of dry medium, and I don't know, I just like the feeling of it. I don't use a ton of paints like watercolor, acrylic in my sketchbooks. Aside from painting the cover, I actually don't really use acrylics or watercolor. I've never really tried oils. I don't know if I would necessarily like it, but I have yet to try it, so you gotta be open to new things. The one that I use, the paint that I use the most is acrylics. And I do enjoy acrylics the most. It's the most recent paint that I've dabbled with. Watercolors I think are just easy. I think that's why I like watercolors, just because you can have the same sort of mixability and infinite amount of colors that acrylics have, but it's easier to control, it's easier to fix mistakes. Well, fixing mistakes is kind of a give or take for watercolors and acrylics, because acrylics, if you make a mistake, you can just layer over it with a new patch of paint. But with watercolors, once you kind of put a color down, you can't really lighten it. You can only really go darker. But I think watercolors are just easier because you don't have to worry about as much of a mess too, because like once you're done, you can kind of just wipe up the watercolors from your palette. Whereas acrylic, I normally like to let it dry on my palette, and then I like to, dispose of it properly, putting it down the drain. I don't know if it's necessarily suggested, so I normally just let it dry on my paint palette. But if I need to use my paint palette, for example, for something else, then I just have wet paint sitting on my paint palette, and I only have 2 palettes. I don't know about a bunch of other artists, but I personally only have 2 paint palettes because, acrylics aren't my main art supply. And it's just, it can be kind of inconvenient. Thankfully, I'm not doing like a ton of acrylic paintings, all at once. So it's never really a problem for me. But if I was, then, that situation would arise. Sorry for the tangent, but just, where was I going with this? I prefer smoother paper because I don't really use, wet medium in my sketchbook a lot. And I wanted to use colored pencils because this paper was rougher, and I was like, ooh, this would give a really great texture for colored pencils. And I was right, it did. It's a lovely texture. I would recommend the sketchbook, definitely, if you're a dry artist, or a dry medium artist, so like you use a lot of pencil, colored pencil. I'm not sure how like pastels, crayons would fare in this sort of sketchbook, but I'm sure that it could be plausible. I don't know how the so far, markers have worked decently in this sketchbook. I've only done a swatch of just my Ohuhu markers. You would have seen that in a previous video. And I liked how it turned out. I definitely liked how it turned out. And, I appreciate, how it's been handling everything. I also want to make known, I'm going to be saying this in a lot of videos recently, that I have a goal for the new year to reach 100 subscribers by March 30th. It would be super helpful if you could support. I know you'll be watching this video on YouTube, and when you do, I would really appreciate if you subscribe. I put a lot of effort into my content. I try to post weekly if I can, and I would love to reach that milestone of 100 subscribers, and it would be so wonderful if you could support. I'm also wanting to get my first commission by March 30th of 2023. It's just sort of something I want. I'm at a good place in my art where I feel comfortable enough to, promote it as a business option for myself. So if you'd like to support my commissions, I will have all of my info is on Instagram officially for commissions, and then I will be posting it on places like Pinterest, and I'll try to get it up to the YouTube community tab once I can. I love and support all of you. I love and appreciate the support from all of you. It is greatly appreciated, and I want to thank all of you who so far have subscribed. We are actually really close to 100 subscribers. As of recording this, when I checked, I had 69 subscribers, so that was really cool. So thank you to all of you. So here's me doing the line art with the colored pencils. It's very rough line art. I thought the form of the actual picture was fine, so I didn't think I needed line art for this. And again, my colored pencils kept breaking, at least the dark brown colored pencil that I was using for line art. And I didn't want to go too crazy. I was liking the lineless look. Only a few details really needed line art, like the hands, just because they were kind of melding together without the lines separating it. And I just go around doing line art in dark brown for as long as I could before my pencil broke again. Also, I think this is a tip. Don't drop your colored pencils if you don't want the lead to be shattered inside of them, because it can be kind of annoying when you're constantly sharpening your pencils. So, that was just a little thing you need to know if you have or need colored pencil tips. But yeah, I just went around doing line art. You will see 3 places that I don't do line art with colored pencils. I don't know if I'll fully show it in the video, but I don't do line art on the heart and star sticker on her cheek. Yeah, you can see the marker right there. And then I also don't do line art and colored pencils on her mouth. But that's going to be all for today. Thank you all for joining me, and I appreciate you all being here. Here's the final result. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!